But let's still stay on the matters regarding revenue because the GRA has achieved the revenue target set out by government for last year. Data cited by Joy Business shows that it was able to collect a little over 57 billion cedis ending December 2021. Meanwhile, the Commissioner General of the GRA, Reverend Dr. Amisha Dawosu, has been explaining to Joy Business what accounts for this record growth in tax collections despite being a pandemic year.
Yeah, I think we realized where we stood and the challenges that are around. And if I would just chip in, normally, if you have read Who Moved My Cheese, when your cheese is moved, you try to find out where can you get other cheese. And those who have read that book. So basically what we're trying to do is to look at various avenues, and we put a number of strategies that will ensure that we will achieve the target. I mean, if you recall, some of them, number one, the Ghana card was one issue. Though I will not say that much money has come through the first year yet, but at least it created an awareness, and many people started trying to make sure that they can come in and file their taxes, especially when you made a lot of noise about the professionals. Number two, we talked about the waiver of interests and penalties. And that one, for example, by the time we ended the year, more than 2,100 taxpayers had applied for the waiver of interest and penalty, even at the domestic side only. And the total of about 2.2 billion of debts, out of which about 1.1 billion was paid before the end of December, and another interest of about 400 and penalties of about 600 were waived. So again, these debts that has existed for a couple of years, and people took advantage because we saw the pandemic situation, and then put in that policy to say that if you can come in and we give you a spread over 6 months to pay your tax, and you can pay the principal, we're ready to waive the interest and penalties. And many people took advantage of it.
How did the digitization also contribute? You have the online payment, so even though it was quite difficult to let these persons go into these companies, do the double checking, there was an online platform where businesses could still pay their taxes. How did that also contribute to the numbers that we saw for end of year 2021?
It contributed significantly because there are two key things that happened last year. One, in terms of being able to file online, and many people filed. And then two, being able to pay online. And for the first time in GRA, we were able to take off all payments out of our offices. And that created, created room in the offices such that people don't go there to queue. You just go there to transact your tax business. Number two, it removed the issue about dishonest checks and the issue about sometimes money flowing from the authority even to the bank accounts. So we didn't have any dishonest checks because people will only pay when they have the money and they just have to clear. Previously, we had got a lot of checks that come in and they don't get honored. So that also, and then for when people have convenience, you know, paying tax is not easy, as I always say. But if it's convenient for you to pay, then at least you take advantage as well. So one, it blocked some of the leakages, which was like the example of the leak. And then two, it made it convenient for people. So it also helped a lot. And then also digitalization on the port side. When we introduced the ICAMs, I think we introduced, as we saw in 2020, we saw the increases beginning in 2020. And they continued significantly all over the year. And that led to customs division doing over 27% year-on-year increase and going over 16 billion. So that aside, that aspect also helped a lot. So digitalization actually really helped. And Ghana.gov coming through, because again, now when we do, the collections are done by the banks within 48 hours. Automatically the money moves to the central bank. Previously, they have to do a manual transfer, and there were also issues about reconciling what have been transferred and what have not been transferred. That was for working with two banks. Today we work with 22 banks, and we don't have those reconciliation. And you can imagine if with two banks we had reconciliation challenges, if not because of automation, digitalization, we would have never. But when we talked about wanted to introduce all the banks to the question people ask me, you are struggling with reconciliation with two banks. How will you manage 22 banks?
George, I think the interaction there with the GRA Commissioner